Right, here we go. Back again. Back again. Alright? And today it is George Orwell a Freemason? Alright? And yeah, today we will cover a few bits in regards to George's life, or Eric, if you like. Or is it Edward, actually? No, we'll go with George, right, for the time being. But yeah, the first time I heard about George Orwell was in school, and I think I would have been about 12, 11, maybe years old, and we covered 1984 in school at quite a young age, and even my brothers of different generations, one 2 years above and the other 4 years above, they also covered it. So it was a book that they made sure a lot of people and children read and studied, that is for sure. And yeah, let me know if you covered it in your school. And for me, I read George Orwell's 1984 in school, but didn't take much note. I have now read it in my adult life twice, and listened to the audiobook as well. And I think it would have been in about 2014 when I started to think that George might be on the other side, if you like. And I think it was in about 2016 that I was pretty sure that he was. But when I first sort of began to realise that he might have been, yeah, that was a bit of a blow, because I thought this guy was on our side. But the question is, of course, is he a Freemason, right? And what sort of background has he got, and his parents? So yeah, that's something that we will touch on. So yeah, is George Orwell a Freemason, right? And I originally seen this article which came out today or yesterday. It was, yeah, today, and it was in the Daily Express. George Orwell's cryptic nod to own family in 1984's dystopia unravels novel's real aim. Right, so they've worked out the real aim of the novel. Sure, why not, right? And so it says, Orwell's aim when writing the novel may well have been for it to serve as a warning to future generations against the dangers of an all-powerful centralised government. Damn straight. More specifically, the novel's hero, Winston Smith, could well have been inspired by Orwell's adopted son. In this way, the legendary English author's cryptic nod to his own family in the novel provides a clear insight into his thought process when writing it. Sure, so this guy is going with the novel being a warning for future generations, and compares, well, the reason he thinks it is because he's comparing Orwell's adopted son to the main character of 1984, Winston Smith. Right, so let's take a look at Orwell and his past and what the history books tell us, as I was unfortunately not around at the time. So let's have a wee look. It says, Orwell was born Eric Arthur Blair on the 25th of June 1903 in eastern India, the son of British colonial civil servant. He was educated in England, and after he left Eton, joined the Indian Imperial Police in Burma, then a British colony. Sure, He registered in 1927 and decided to become a writer. Right. In 1928, he moved to Paris, where lack of success as a writer forced him into a series of menial jobs. He described his experiences in his first book, Down and Out in Paris and London, published in 1933. He took the name George Orwell shortly before the publication. This was followed by his first novel, Burmese Days, in 1934. Right, so straight away from the very first paragraph in regards to George Orwell's history, or Eric, if you like, Mr. Blair. Well, yeah, his dad was a colonial civil servant, right? And yeah, they are Freemasons. Damn straight they are, and that is for sure, right? So that is straight off the bat. Not only that, they tell us that he was educated in Eton, and that is Freemason all over it. That is for sure. And also, he was Imperial Police. That would have been the British colonial police. And yeah, that would mean that you were most likely, or yeah, most definitely, a Freemason. You would belong to a Freemasonic lodge, for sure, if you was in the colonial police, right? It then says, between 1941 and 1943, Orwell worked on propaganda for the BBC. In 1943, he became literary editor of the Tribune, a weekly left-wing magazine. Right, by now he was a prolific journalist, writing articles, reviews and books. In 1945, Orwell's Animal Farm was published, a political fable set in a farmyard but based on Stalin's betrayal of the Russian Revolution. It made Orwell's name and ensured he was financially comfortable for the first time in his life. 1944 was published 4 years later. Set in an imaginary, totalitarian future, the book made a deep impression with its title and many phrases such as Big Brother is watching you, new speak and double think. Right, entering popular use. By now, Orwell's health was deteriorating and he died of tuberculosis on the 21st of January 1950. Right, so that is a brief summary of the history of Eric or George, right? And yeah, as you can see, instead of going on to university, Orwell entered the British Imperial Service and worked as a colonial police officer, right? And they are really severely linked to Freemasonry, right? And things like the British Army are also linked, as you can see, Freemasonry and the British Empire. Freemasonry also had a very strong presence in the British Army and colonial service. Damn straight. I would imagine that it wasn't just a very strong presence, but it was actually the driving force behind the British Empire and colonial service, right? Sure, it's a service. For who though? Right, and sticking with Orwell, this book here, Builders of Empire, Freemasons and British Imperialism, 1717 to 1927. And I did try and download it, but I couldn't get it, and I'm certainly not paying almost $50 for it. But this book pretty much tells you that the colonial services of the British Empire were Freemasons, right? And I had a look at some of the reviews, so we'll have a look at one or two. Brings long overdue recognition to the importance of Freemasonry to the culture of the British Empire and provides a firm foundation upon which other scholars can build. Right, and that is from the Journal of World History, right? Who probably they are Freemasons as well. That wouldn't surprise me one bit. And here's another review that is also for this book. And it said, a significant and sophisticated book. And would you believe it? It's from the Freemasons themselves, right? So yeah, they've put their own review as to their importance in the British Empire. But yeah, Freemasons and any British colonial service, they go hand in hand. And that is a definite, alright? And in terms of Eton College, well yeah, there is the old Etonial Lodge of ancient free and accepted Masons, number 4,500, and that is their fancy logo. And I would imagine if Orwell was a Freemason, this would have been the lodge that he was in. And this is also the lodge that David Cameron and George Osborne attended. What a surprise. And this lodge, some information on it. Old Etonian Lodge is open to all old Etonians and current, right, and former, wow, masters of Eton College, whether already a Freemason or interested in becoming one. Hip hip hooray, right? And in terms of other info on this lodge, the lodge was founded in December 1922 and consecrated at Freemasons Hall on the 3rd of July 1923. The lodge is numbered 4,500 on the register of the United Grand Lodge of England. Now, I can't say for sure that George or Eric attended this lodge 100%, but if Eric was a Freemason, then this would have been the lodge that he attended at some point, and the date it was founded matches up to when George was on the go, or Eric even. And I seen this from the New York Times, 4th of September 2007. MI5 spy agency to release secret file on George Orwell. Right, so what's this saying then? Well, it says the secret file that the MI5 kept on George Orwell from 1929 until his death in 1950 was to be declassified by the National Archives. It shows that in contrast to the fictional Big Brother, the cruel and all-seeing secret police of Orwell's classic 1984, MI5 took a surprisingly benign view of the writer. Right, so yeah, quite strange, that one, sure. It then says, the documents show Orwell, whose real name was Eric Arthur Blair, attracted the attention of the police in 1936 when he was 33, would you believe it, for alleged communist activities in Wigan, a mining town where he had gone to research a book about working class life in northern England. And of course that is another book that he wrote, The Road to Wigan Pier, I think. And it then goes on to say, I've picked out certain bits from this, but it then says, the MI5 had been watching Orwell since 1929, when he was a struggling journalist in Paris attempting to write for leftist publications. Right, so as early as 1929, George or Eric had the men in black following him and clocking everything that he done. I wonder if George knew that he was being watched at every turn and corner, right? It then goes on to say, in 1942, Orwell drew police interest again while working for the Indian Service of the BBC. A report by a sergeant named Ewing of the Special Branch, the British Police Intelligence Wing, said Orwell had advanced communist views, and several of his Indian friends say they have often seen him at communist meetings. Right, so as you can see, it seems like there is a lot of confusion regarding George or Eric or Edward, as you'll see. But the police and MI5, the government, of course, the Secret Service, had been watching him since day one, basically. So interesting stuff. It then does say the file shows that the MI5 took no action against Orwell over Ewing's report. In a note, an MI5 officer named W. Ogilvy says he had telephoned the special branch to ask why Ewing had described Orwell as having advanced communist views, right? Because he wasn't, seemingly, or was he, right? Again, confusion, but they took no action. Surprise, surprise, right? It also does say other documents in the file show that MI5 did not consider Orwell a security risk. Right. In 1943, it was asked whether Orwell should be accredited as a journalist with the Allied Armed Forces headquarters. The security service have records of this man, but raise no objection to his appointment, was the reply. Right. So again, Orwell is fine. It's all good if it's Eric, right? And it then does say, a year earlier, MI5 had approved Orwell's wife Eileen as suitable for employment with the Ministry of Food, right? And I found that one quite interesting. And there you go. They okayed Orwell's wife for a job. Ain't that lucky, right? And it then does say, despite his lifelong socialist views, in 1949, a year before his death, at 46, Orwell gave the government a list of people he thought were Stalinist sympathizers or fellow travellers. Right, so even just before his death, there he was, handing over information to the state or the government, right? And sticking everyone in. So the chances are that he was probably working for the government his whole life, right? And it's not looking too good for him not being a Freemason. And by the looks of it, deception and Eric go hand in hand, right? And I did come across this article, which I found quite interesting and thought of note, right? And it is from February the 8th, 2014, George Orwell's School Days, right? So it's an article that somebody's done in The Guardian, Bill Gates's paper, right? And it says, there are two Saint Cyprians. One is a martyr of the early church, a 3rd century bishop of Carthage, who was put to death in AD 258, right, by a proconsul of the Emperor Valerian after refusing to pay obeisance to the pagan gods. The other, now regarded by scholars as a mythological figure and expunged from the Vatican's martyrology, was Saint Cyprian of Antioch, right? According to legend, he was a pagan sorcerer who converted to Christianity, but secretly carried on with his magical practices. He is regarded as the patron saint of necromancers, right? So there you go. I thought that was rather interesting and certainly worth noting. It then does say, I picked a few bits out, and there is a good deal of evidence to suggest that Orwell's account of his prep school days was, how to put this, a load of utter bollocks. Orwell's childhood friend, Jakafa Budaicom, right, we'll go with that, said that the eye of such was not Eric at all. She remembered him as a happy child, and such rallying against Saint Cyprian's, as she recalled, was warmly humorous rather than bitter or aggrieved, right? Among several who left records of their time there, none strikes the same note. The golfer and sports writer Henry Longhurst said that Orwell's hated Miss Wilkes was the outstanding woman of my life, and when a dinner in her honour was given in 1951, 250 former pupils turned out. Sure. So yeah, again, more confusion. Who was this guy Eric? Exactly. And it then does say, such were the joys then, remains a riddling and fascinating document. Rather than describing the formative experience for Orwell's vision of totalitarianism, it may instead have been a description itself formed by that vision. To repurpose Eliot's line, we had the experience but missed the meaning, and approach to the meaning restores the experience. It is a black magic of which the mythical Saint Cyprian might have approved. Wow. So yeah, I think you will be able to see why I thought that this was certainly worth pointing out. And yeah, it totally fits with the deception and or black magic, if you like. And I did come across this article in regards to Mr. Blair, or Mr. Orwell, if you like. And this is him here, George. Or is it? Interesting moustache as well, I must admit. But hey, maybe that was the trend at the time until Hitler ruined it for everyone. But yeah, surely that's George in the photo. Well, yeah, it is. But that's not the name that he gave. And it wasn't Eric either. This is from December the 6th, 2014. George Orwell really did have a stint in jail as a drunk fish porter. Wow. So yeah, this is one that I was unaware of until yesterday. So I had a look, and it said Edward Burton was all and none of this. The name was a pseudonym for one Eric Arthur Blair. Surprise, surprise, right? Who would later become famous under another pseudonym. Burton was in fact George Orwell, researching the streets in what would eventually result in Down and Out in Paris and London. His writings on poverty in the two cities. His original intention to experience prison life failed, despite his conviction for being drunk and incapable. but he did turn his adventure in police cells into an unpublished article. Clink, sorry, right? That was the unpublished article, which I haven't read. But yeah, there you go. It really does sound like Orwell was some kind of double agent, right? Not only a Freemason, but some sort of secret government agent. And that would not surprise me one bit. And it does say, this discovery allows us to reach the conclusion that Orwell is reliable. Here, at least, he is impeachably honest, and this sheds some light on the whole question of writers' reliability when representing the poor. Right, so very confusing as to which is true and what's not true when it comes to Orwell's writings. But what we do know is fucking true for sure is that, yeah, we are living in 1984 today. Not the year, but the book that Orwell set to a T, so precisely as well. And yeah, it's almost like he had foreseen knowledge of what was to come. So how did that come about is the question. Do I think he was a Freemason? Yeah, I do. I reckon probably a Mason and working for the government. Am I sure? About 85 to 90% sure. I can't say for 100%, but I am certainly leaning towards Orwell being a Freemason and more, right? This is his signature Eton, of course, attended by many other Masons. And I did think that he could be related to Tony Blair, the fucking war criminal. But seemingly, as you can see, it's unlikely, right? Sure, unlikely, according to Wikipedia. Tony Blair's father, the illegitimate son of actors, was adopted as a baby by Glasgow shipyard worker James Blair and his wife Mary. George Orwell was born Eric Arthur Blair. His father, Richard Walmesley Blair, worked in the opium department of the Indian Civil Service. The two families appear unconnected, right? But it doesn't say for sure that they ain't. But yeah, what a surprise. Orwell's dad was a smack dealer. There you go. He was involved in the opium trade. Ain't that a surprise? So I would say that his Orwell's dad was certainly quite a high up Freemason, without a doubt. And yeah, we'll leave Orwell, but let me know what you think about Eric or Mr. Barton or George. And yeah, let me know if you think he is a Freemason or if you have any other information on our hero, right? And in terms of other Masons, I thought we could have a quick look at some names that we know of, right? So we will look at this article here by George H. Lilly, if that is even their name, and it's a list of Masons, the 2nd of the 4th, 2020, the year of deception, right? And it does mention famous Australian Freemasons to begin with, and it says that Freemasonry in Australia is particularly well represented in business and trade union communities, as well as emergency services, defence forces and the legal profession. There are plenty of prominent Australians who were also Masons, including, right, and I'd imagine the list would go on and on, right, but here is some that they mention. A lot of I know some, But of course there is, as you can see, a brewer, an explorer, author, entertainer, right? As you can see at the bottom, many cricketers, so sportsmen, and including Donald Bradman, right? So if you're into your cricket, you'll know them. Wally Grout, right? Sure, not into my cricket, so I don't know them. But yeah, sportsmen, they're always, especially high up sportsmen, connected to Freemasons. There's one there, Benjamin Franklin, the scientist and inventor, sure, Freemason. George Washington, the first president. What a surprise that he would be a Freemason, right? Who else have we got? Winston Churchill, another fucking war criminal, just like Tony Blair. Churchill, one of the worst by far. But yeah, another Freemason. Would you believe it? Franklin Roosevelt, Freemason. Edgar Hoover, yep, another Freemason, of course. Mustafa Kemal Ataturk, the reformer and founder of the Republic of Turkey. Right, so it goes to show the stretch and power of the Masonic society, secret society. Voltaire, right, and he was seemingly encouraged to join by Benjamin Franklin. So obviously very good pals, right? Sure. Mozart, another musician. So even then, the Masonic lodges were in control of musicians, and it's the same today, of course. We see it today for sure. Another one, Mark Twain. A lot of people don't think that Twain is, but yeah, he is, and he's left a lot of clues, seemingly. So yeah, they probably ain't hard to spot if you know what you're looking for, right? And yep, Sir Alexander Fleming, of course, who discovered penicillin. Sure, why not, right? And he won the Nobel Peace Prize. So yeah, they looked after him for being the man that discovered penicillin. Hip hip hooray. And in terms of today, a couple of names, Masonic, total Freemasons. Berlusconi, former Italian Prime Minister, total Freemason him, and Mafia connected for sure. Another dude here, Jesse Jackson, and it says there, civil rights activist. Yeah, sure he was. Why not, right? And who else have we got? It does have, I believe, somebody else in this article. Yep, it is Steve Wozniak. And that was of course, the co-founder of Apple, right? And he became a Freemason in 1980 in California, which is burning at the moment again, still, right? Crazy. Michael Richards, actor, and seemingly he is a 33rd degree Mason. So yeah, he's obviously made a lot of sacrifices to get to where he's at. And yep, he's just another in a long list of Masons, Freemasons. And yeah, I would say that chances are, like I said, Orwell is, or was even, a Freemason. And for me, personally, I think he would have been working for the British government or the Secret Service. And he had MI5 watching him all the time. And they never once done anything. They were almost there, making sure he was okay. But more still, making sure that he toed the line and didn't get out of line, right? Because they would have been there to nip it on the bud, right? So they let him play his part. It is possible that Orwell might not have known that he was being used or manipulated. But I think, me personally, I think that towards the end he knew. I don't think that they rubbed him out, but hey, that is a possibility, because they wouldn't have been able to risk him coming out and saying too much, being guilty, right? Because yeah, he might have had a heart, but yeah, I reckon definitely he would have been a Freemason for sure. Right, so yeah, like I said, let me know what you think in terms of George and the Freemasons. And like I did mention before, they are in the news quite a lot lately, and I will touch on that again. Anyway, a bit of a long one for sure, but that is about it. Bye bye.